In 79 AD, deep beneath Rome's most celebrated arena, a 19-year-old Dean girl named Sabina stood shackled in darkness. Above her, 50,000 voices roared, not for her, not for her people, but for the gladiator who had just slaughtered her brothers. That crowd, wild and unthinking, could not know what would unfold in the shadows below. Over the next 3 hours, a ritual so vicious, so carefully concealed, would take place that even Rome's own historians argued over whether to record it at all. This is the story the Senate tried to erase. Colosseum, only a year old, loomed above. Stone and blood, it was not merely a building but Rome's monument to dominance. The arena floor, stained and scarred, was more than sand. It soaked up the remnants of dying men and wild beasts alike. Beneath it, a labyrinth of tunnels and cages housed Rome's most valuable acquisitions: the condemned, the captured, the conquered. Gladiator games were never merely sport. They were political theater, religious ritual, and social intimidation all at once. When General Marcus Antonius crushed the Dean uprising in 78 AD, he did not return empty-handed. 847 captives accompanied him, including 124 women of noble blood. They were chieftains, daughters, warriors, priestesses, symbols of a people Rome sought not only to destroy, but to humiliate completely. Gaius Valerius Maximus, 32, a man forged in blood and fire, now faced these spoils. Nearly 6 feet tall, scarred and battle-hardened, he had killed 89 men in the arena. A former slave, he had fought 14 brutal years to survive, dreaming only of one prize: freedom, marked by the wooden sword, the rudis. That afternoon, before Emperor Titus, he defeated the Dean champion. His reward, a customary list: 500 denarii, a laurel wreath, and first choice among the captive women. Among them, Sabina, hair dark as the highlands, skin pale as ash, stood with 17 others. Her betrothed, Decebalus, had been killed months earlier. Her village lay in ruins. All that remained was fear, grief, and the faint, flickering hope of dignity. But Rome had other plans. The guard that morning informed her she had been chosen for the afternoon spectacle. What she did not yet understand, what no one could truly comprehend, was how Rome's version of mercy often outpaced its cruelty. True domination, Rome knew, was psychological. Victory alone was never enough. Symbols had to be broken, traditions corrupted, and even the most protected members of a society, its women, had to be claimed as property. This was methodical. This was law. At precisely 3 in the afternoon, as shadows crept over the arena, the master of games descended into the hypogeum, the underground labyrinth beneath the Colosseum. Damp stone reeked of fear and humanity discarded. Gaius Valerius Maximus approached with a bronze tablet listing his spoils: gold, wine, comfort, or the carnal privilege, Victoria Carnals. In a world where he could be killed at any moment, this was a rare measure of power. Rome sanctioned it, celebrated it, demanded it. Meanwhile, in the women's holding area, preparations were underway. Guards scrubbed, combed, and dressed the captives in tunics meant to erase identity. Zemaxis, an elder priestess once devoted to the Dian Sun temple, whispered to Sabina, "They are preparing us, either for the show or for what comes after." Above, 50,000 spectators roared for the next spectacle, a performance of domination, carefully orchestrated humiliation. 20 Dean women were lifted through trap doors into the sunlight. The arena smelled of roasting meat, perfumed wealth, and iron-stained sand. Their crimes were announced: rebellion, aiding enemies, defying Roman gods. And then the cruel twist: they were to fight each other with wooden swords, clothed in shredded garments meant to mock them. Winners would be claimed. Losers would die. Sabina faced Camasiccus, Dealus's sister, a woman who had once sung at weddings and taught children to weave. For 90 seconds they stood unflinching. The empire, loud and entitled, waited. The crowd, initially excited, grew confused, then enraged. They rained down scraps of food, olive pits, whatever they could grasp. Yet Sabina and Camasiccus moved not a muscle. Refusal. Resistance. Guards eventually stormed in. Camasiccus struck, collapsing to the sand. Sabina screamed, rushed to her, and both were dragged below. Not to death yet, but into the true machinery of Roman exploitation. The hypogeum, bureaucratic, polished, and terrifying, awaited. Scribes recorded the allocation of captives, reducing human lives to inventory. Sabina and Camacicus were separated, each confined to small stone chambers, benches and iron rings embedded in walls, doors locking only from the outside. Clean, precise, intentional. This was infrastructure designed for cruelty. At 4 o'clock, Gas entered Sabina's chamber. Blood streaked across his chest, his victories still fresh. She, cornered and unarmed, faced the full weight of Roman law. He could claim her as the system demanded, yet something extraordinary occurred. Gas removed his helmet, set aside his sword, and for 5 minutes sat in silence. Then, in broken Dion, he asked her name. A conversation followed. A shared recounting of loss, her burned home, his father executed. 2 hours passed. Guards checked twice, heard voices, and assumed compliance. At 6, Gas made a choice Rome would never forgive. He called for the guard. "This woman is ill, infected. I refuse the allocation. Send her to the physician." The loophole, as narrow as it was, allowed it. Sabina was removed, surviving the arena only to succumb 3 days later to infection, common and unremarkable in Roman captivity. Gas never saw her again. This single act, defiance in the machinery of cruelty, sparked whispers. Maximus refused further rewards, unsettling the empire. His rebellion, minor in scale, became the subject of Senate debate. Public acknowledgement of a practice long ignored revealed cracks in Roman morality. October 1st, 79 AD, the Senate passed the Lex Captivity. Female prisoners could no longer be distributed as rewards in public spectacle. The law, limited but unprecedented, signaled that even Rome had boundaries, though it changed nothing for most captives. Gas would eventually purchase the freedom of Camacicus, a rare personal act of mercy. One woman saved against a system built to erase lives. But Sabina's death, like so many others, remained invisible. Her suffering unrecorded, unremarkable, except in the faint scratches in stone and the fragments unearthed by archaeologists centuries later. Rome had industrialized cruelty, turned it into entertainment, and normalized it through law, architecture, and ritual. Gladiators, celebrated, worshipped, became instruments of the same machinery that exploited them. Society turned their sweat and blood into aphrodisiacs, their bodies into performance, and their victories into permission for further cruelty. The empire was brilliant, efficient, and morally hollow. History preserves only whispers. The chambers beneath the Colosseum speak louder than marble monuments ever could. Humanity flickered briefly in one gladiator's choice, but the machinery persisted. Rome chose spectacle over empathy, leaving a legacy of erased lives, hidden suffering, and moral compromise. And in this darkness, Sabina's story lingers. Not in grand texts, not in statues, but in the faint scars of stone, the whispered accounts of the dead, the echoes of a civilization that celebrated power without conscience. The Colosseum above remained a monument to applause, blood, and absolute control. But below, the machinery of Rome continued its work, unseen, unchallenged, efficient. Sabina's survival from one horror did not free her. Infection spread quietly, the most common killer in captivity, invisible to the masses who cheered above. Her final hours, cramped in a stone chamber beneath Rome's greatest arena, went unrecorded by historians. Not one senator debated her death.